Hey y'all, so before we dive in today, I'd really appreciate if you could give this channel and this video a like and a subscribe. I'm trying to get good at this whole video making thing, so I'm just going to keep doing more of it. So, I know the people who follow me are kind of a mixed bag of guitarists and production folks. If you followed my Sunday sermon series, you know I'm a firm believer in having systems and processes to get things done. What I'm going to talk about is good research and development for figuring out systems and processes by which to do things in an efficient manner so that you yield good results for you and the people who hire you. There may be a time when you get a message on a Wednesday afternoon from someone you love working with, and they need a short song done by the end of the week for a video for a social channel, a product demo, it could be anything. The response I usually give is, all right, of course I can, dude, let's go. The reason being, I like working with these people and I want them to keep coming back to me with their projects. So I take the gig, I underpromise and overdeliver, and I do the damn thing, just like I would if they were coming to me for a single or an EP. If instead you're asking yourself, how is it possible to finish something in such a short time frame? Well, that's why we're here today. The 1 hour mix. This is a great exercise in mixing something with a sense of purpose, to get it done and to move on, instead of just being in tweaking hell, where you spend eternity just tweaking knobs and moving faders and single decibel increments, all that work, and nothing gets done. I've been there and I do not miss those days. There is hope. If we want to be consistent and efficient in our workflow, we have to have a way to refine our process and identify weaknesses in our skill sets. This is hard. It's humbling stuff, but it is important. A way to figure this out is to give yourself a set amount of time to do a mix. Write something short. Like, we're musicians, we can easily put something short together and give ourselves a set amount of time to do the mix. Once it's done, leave it alone. When I do little riff videos on my Instagram, it's usually one of these exercises that I did, and I thought it turned out okay. After your mix is done and the time you set, take a day or two away from working on it and listen to it on every system that you can. Your car, your headphones, your laptop, or iPad speakers. Listen to it in mono, in stereo, everything. Everything that you don't like about it, do research on how to do that thing better. I do my research on Nail the Mix. I'm an enhanced member over there, and if I'm having a problem, there is some resource there where I can find the answer. I'll go back into the done mix and do whatever revisions that I want to do in one session and rebounce it. Then I'll reference all over and see how it stacks up to the first mix. And then I just move on to whatever it is that I'm moving on to next. If there are things that I outright don't get done in the 1 hour mix, I figure out where too much time went in that process and figure out how to make it more efficient. If there are things that could sound better, I put the work in to improve those things. Now I'm going to do one of these speed mixing exercises on camera and see what happens. I wanted to do this in 30 minutes, but that was honestly kind of dumb. I wound up giving myself an hour, and here's what happened. The hour makes more sense to me because I usually mix in 1 hour sessions. Then I'll take a break, give my ears a rest, and come back. I usually mix at night, and by this point I'm hangry, so I need a break anyway. When I'm doing a full mix, a few of those rotations and the song is usually ready to go off to the artist for revisions. In this description, you can find a link to the stems for the song. Take these stems, do your own 1 hour mix. Now, let's dive into mine. All right, I'm using Superior Drummer 3 here with the Death Kit. Nice little kit sound here. But something that I like to do when I'm using Superior Drummer is I actually like to layer in a Get Good Drums kit as well. So I'm going to just grab Contact, drop it in here, and I'm going to open my browser. And I'm going to roll, I think I'll go with Invasion. Invasion. Come on, Invasion. There we go. You didn't open, you did open two of you. Alright, so we'll nerf that one. And then I'll go to my not keyboards, I'll go to my Outputs tab here in Contact, and I'm only going to use the kick, sum, the snare top, or I'm going to use snare top and bottom, but I'm going to sum them together. So I'm just going to call this, I'm just going to go to the snare, and then I'm also going to use the room close and the room far, because the Get Good Drums room mics
are just god tier. Their snare and snare rooms are just off the chain, and I love them, so I'm gonna add them in here too. Yeah, if you ever have routed Kontakt before, you probably realize, like, oh wow, that's bold, Jason. You're gonna route Kontakt on the fly in this session. So now what I'm doing is enabling the Kontakt outputs in Studio One. So I've got kick, snare. I'm gonna go room close, room far, bam, done. So now I'm gonna exit out of my little outputs tab here so I can see Get Good. Close out the browser, and it is important to close and reopen instances of Kontakt before you do any changes. I don't know why. It's just something that, you know, Kontakt itself literally tells you to do it. So I just kind of trust the system. Oh, I'm going to copy the drum MIDI here. And then the first thing I'm going to do is go into settings and GGD. I'm going to load preset for general MIDI. And I can go kick. So I'm going to send the kick sum there. I'll add in some kick sub, kick trig. Let me hear this. These are probably going to be out of phase, but what I'm going to do, I know I've done this enough that I know how I want this set up, so I'm just going to roll with it. Bam, bam, down the overheads. Don't want any rooms on there. Then I'll go to my snare. I'm going to send that to the snare. I'll just leave them about how they are, and then I'll send this snare trig. And I like mid punch, and I like the Mapex Warbird. Down the overheads, up the room close and the room far, because this is all I'm going to have going into the rooms is the snare. Just going to turn the toms all the way down. So I'm not using toms from Get Good at all, because the Superior Drummer toms are the best. Get rid of all the cymbals. So that should leave us yeah. So now I'm going to print these to audio. In Studio One, it is transform to audio track. Bam. Now I'm going to let it do its thing, which it can take a while. So here goes a little chunk of our 30 minutes. Oh, okay, I'm under 5 minutes. That's not too bad. Clipping has occurred. I'm just going to ignore that. It's probably the snare clipping, which, whatever. I'm going to clip it anyway after the fact. So what's a little bit beforehand? All right, there we go. Now we have our MIDI outs from Get Good Drums. And now I'm going to do the same thing for Superior Drummer. Transform to audio track. Okay. Clipping has occurred there. Again, not going to worry about it. Just because some people would, oh no, it's clipping, I've got to do it again. The only thing I don't clip, I'm going to rephrase this. Sometimes at the channel level on drums, like, a little bit of clip on that transient is not going to be the end of the world. I wouldn't clip guitars or vocals or bass or anything else on the way in. And I don't clip any outputs. You'll see later when I gain stage for the hardware compressor that I'm taking great care to make sure that no outputs are being clipped. But something like a drum peak, like a single drum peak, whatever, like you're just going to live with it, you know, in the real world. So let this do its thing. Come on. Superior Drummer has a lot of outputs, so it's going to take forever because I want to get into my routing. All right, are we done, Superior Drummer? Yeah, okay, so we have Superior Drummer. And the last thing that I'm going to print down is going to be Gen Bass. But the first thing I'm going to do is go in here. I'm going to turn off the amp sim in here. So that'll just print out as a DI. Yeah, just a good old DI bass here. Transform to audio track. Oh, wow. Well, that was easy. All right, so routing. Got some post-production stuff going on here. So I'm going to route that all to a bus. And call this the post bus. I'm going to fly it all the way. I'm going to slide these over for now. Post bus. Over there. Then I'll do a bus for the bass. Normally I split my bass tracks, so this bus here, it's not necessary. Normally I'll have a clean, like an amp bass and a distort bass going on. But I'm just going to make this bus just for the sake of workflow, just because this is normally how I do things. And then I'm going to add a bus for the guitar tracks. I'm also going to add a drum bus. Also going to add a drum bus, but I'm going to do a couple little housekeeping things here with the drums. Just for organization's sake. I'm going to get all these Get Good tracks the same color and in the same area. And now what I'm going to do is make folder tracks for the kick and the snare tracks. And make a bus here. That'll be my kick sum. And then I'll do the same thing for the snare. I'm going to make a snare sum. And then I'll make one for the toms as well. Okay, and now what I'll do, I'll grab the sum tracks here, these little buses, and then I'm going to grab the rest of the drum tracks, and then now I'll add my main drum bus. And now I'm gonna go ahead and apply my plug-in chains to this. And then we'll gain stage. Good old Slate virtual mix rack. And with this, I'll set this to just Brit in, and then I'm just gonna drop this on all of the other tracks that aren't buses. That aren't main buses, like some of these sub buses here are gonna have this. And then I'm going to grab everything in the mix. I'm going to add an instance of Pro EQ, which is Studio One's stock EQ plugin. And then I'm just going to grab my drum tracks. And I'm going to add an instance of this plugin called CLA Mix Hub. This one is an SSL channel strip, which you'll see whenever it loads up, and it is sick. All right, and then here on my buses, I'm going to add Slate's virtual tape machines. Really sick tape saturation kind of plugin. And actually, I should have just added that at once because I will do some tweaking here. And I'll just copy paste these settings to everything else. Bump that down. Bam. And then here I'll go ahead and do my mix bus, which now I'm going to route in the hardware bus compressor. Yay. The first thing I'm gonna do is set the output to the bus comp out, the input to the bus comp in, which that effectively is an effects loop send and return that sets the bus compressor up as a hardware insert. And now I'm going to set up this bus compressor. I'm gonna grab my phone here so you can kind of see what I'm doing on the bus comp while I do this. Whoa! All right, so now I'm dragging these out, which these are my outputs of my mix, which you can see here. The bus compressor out is clipping hard as hell, so I'm gonna set this to a more reasonable level. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of set this to do what I like it to do. Okay, yeah, so that's about how I like to see that comp bouncing, which I might change that a little bit as I mix this. Like I may have to like bump the threshold up and adjust the makeup gain a little bit and that kind of thing. But for all intents and purposes, like what you just saw on that little close up of the compressor is what I want it to be doing, like as of late. I'll go through cycles of the way I set my bus compressor, and just like right now, this is kind of how I've been doing it. So this is what I'm gonna roll with for this mix here. All right, now I'm gonna start gain staging a little bit, which the very first thing I'm gonna do is just turn down this post bus, and I'm gonna use this doing the input control on the channel. Way too loud. Play, bump these drums down a bit as well. All right, next thing I'm gonna do here, that's kind of feeling a little bit better, so I'm gonna go ahead and add in virtual mix rack again here on the main output, the master bus. I'm gonna clear all these out, and I'm going for VCC mix bus. I'm gonna set this to mix in. Then I'm going to add a virtual tape machines. Then Eosis Air EQ. I like this one. I'll just do like a kind of a broad low shelf boost and a high shelf here, just to kind of give the whole shebang some brightness and some low end richness. All right, and then I'm gonna go with Slate's FGX. And I'm going to roll with the old version because the old version, I kind of like it a little bit more than the new version. It has just at its default setting, you can just turn it on and stick it at the end of a mix. Like I'll master with some different stuff, but if I'm doing a mix, I can just stick this in here, like right at the end of the chain, and as long as it's not clipping, like I know things are gonna sound how I want it, and it's gonna be at a level that I need it to be at. Yeah, I mean, this, I can just set it on here and just throw it to where I'm hitting about negative 0.1 and just leave it be and do a mix. And when I print it out at the end to actually go to master it, I know I'm going to be good because, yeah. All right, so we're already at 20 minutes. Damn, 18 minutes and 5 seconds. We might have to go a little bit longer than 30 minutes. But here we go. I'm going to dive into this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start processing my drums. I'm going to go kind of to the breakdown at the end here. I'm just going to loop this breakdown, and I'm going to go through and just process my kick drum. The very first thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm going to phase align them. And if you don't phase align your drums, you should. This is a cool little way. Well, okay. Well, all right. Well, that's easy. The kick is pretty well in phase. Yeah, that's pretty well in phase, so I can just leave that guy alone. And then the snare. Where are you at, snares? No, okay. This actually works out pretty well. These are pretty much in phase. Also, I don't really see any reason to move them there. Oh, what we got here? Aha. We are out. Okay, so that's cool. All right, so now I'm just gonna run through and start processing my kick. So yeah, I'm not gonna dive, like you guys can see what I'm doing. Just for the sake of keeping this video within a decent time limit, I'm just gonna go. All right, that kick's sounding pretty mean. As you can see, that was kind of ugly sounding, that guy there. See, you notice my bus comp out was clipping, so I had to go bump that down some. All right, so now moving on to the snare. Good old snizzy snare. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and move over to the cymbals. First thing I'm going to do is add on this plugin called DF Clarify from Drumforge. It's freaking cool. Instant tamer of ugly frequencies in cymbal tracks. Godsend, absolute godsend, this plugin. You can see here, I don't want my cymbals to be super compressed, because super compressed cymbals just don't sound good. You may think they do, they just don't. Like if it's just a big wash and a mess of sound just living over top of your mix, that can just, it's not pleasing to the ear. So I set this compressor here to respond to the snare, really. You can even see here. Pretty aggressively high pass filter. Bringing a low pass to gonna tame some uber highs. And then the cool thing about Clarify is, I mean, it really makes it so you just have to do like a little broad spectrum cut. Find the real nasty resonance in your cymbal track and just a little broad spectrum cut and some low passing, and you're good. And you can also use that to great effect on room mics as well. So here's my Superior Drummer room print. So I'm going to run a clarify on this as well. Probably more so aggressively than what I did on the cymbals. Yeah. Pretty big difference there. And I've got this guy here. This is just a room mic print from Superior Drummer of the snare. So basically what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to high pass it up to about 100 hertz, low pass it at about 11, 12K. I'm going to bump up this level here to boost this going into the plugin. Switch over to this compressor, and I'm just pretty much going to blast this compressor. Hit this with some EQ, and then I'll balance it in. And I'll use room mics instead of reverb on snare a lot of times. This trash mic, overhead mono, and room mic, room close here. I'm just gonna get rid of these because I don't think I need them. And I think it's gonna be a waste of time trying to get anything done processing them. For the GGD rooms, I'm going to treat them in a very similar fashion to what I did with the Superior Drummer rooms. Yeah, so I'm also going to just get rid of the Get Good room mic track that I'd printed as well. Let me find a bit with some toms so I can process these guys really quickly. All right, put it right here. Put this little section on a loop. All right, so the one thing I like to do with toms, this is pretty easy because these are drum samples, you know, so you don't you don't have bleed from cymbals and other shells, because you can turn that down in Superior Drummer. But I'm going to set up a gate just to shorten the ring of the toms. All right, and I'll just paste that same gate onto all of the tom tracks. Bam. All right, I'm going to be a wild man here, and I'm just going to throw this SSL channel on the tom bus and just see if I can just get them all with one swoop. Sometimes tom sets will be forgiving in the sense that they take very similar EQ moves across the whole set, and if you're trying to do something in a quick pinch, you can process them all the same, or you can go out and do each of it individual track. But what I found is, you know, the frequencies at which you do the moves will just move an ever so small bit when you do them individually, as opposed to when you do them globally with a well-tuned, well-recorded set of toms like what we've got here in Superior Drummer, or some really good sounding live drums. Like even then, the settings wind up being quite similar across the board. And I do like clipping my toms. I like a plugin called DF Clip from DrumForge to do that. I like throwing it on triple band, and I'll just set the low and high band so that I can boost them a little bit here in the clipper, and then drop out in the mid some. Yeah, see, that's just a band of frequency in the toms that just kind of doesn't sound good. I'm also going to, that's got a really long kind of tail on it, which I don't really care for. So I'm gonna throw on a transient designer and just drop the sustain some. And then the last thing I'm going to do to the drums for now is I'm going to take these three dudes here. I'm going to add... I'm going to add... Bam, bam, bam. I'm going to add an FX channel. I'm just going to add this little preset that I have made here, drums parallel attack murder. This is just a super grimy drum parallel compression setting that I've kind of got. Oh no, that's the wrong one. I need drums sustain murder. There we go. And I'll go ahead and turn these down because I've got these bad boys here way overcooked. But I mean, everything in this setting is way overcooked. It's parallel drum compression. It's supposed to be as such. Yeah, here's what it sounds like. Alright, it sounds totally terrible on its own, but when you blend it in, Alright, so I am going to throw on virtual mix rack here. Just something that I'll like to do at my drum bus sometimes is throw on this FGN EQ from Slate, and I'll just do a little high and low shelf boost at the drum bus. For this one, I'm actually going to drop down on the high shelf on the drums just a little bit. All right, so yeah, I guess the whole 30-40 minute thing is just not happening here. So I'm just gonna move on to the bass guitar processing, which I've got my handy little DI here from Gen Bass. So I'm just gonna throw that bad boy on there. All right, something else that I like to do on my bass, which this is something that is kind of contentious in the metal community. It's something that's really, it is a it's an EDM thing, and people have differing opinions on whether or not it should be done in metal music. But I like to trigger a compressor on my bass bus off of my kick drum. So I've got this compressor and it's only firing on my bass bus whenever there's a kick drum impact. Okay, so yeah, that kind of sounds cool. I'm gonna add in sweet tone here. It's a little high pass, low pass, and a little kind of like poor man's tilt, if you will, if you're familiar with tilt. Okay, I'm actually going to do this Pro EQ at the bus, and I'll just copy this over because I know it's weird just hearing a guitar out of one speaker. I kind of want to hear it all in context anyway. All right. Oh yeah, there's this little bit of post production here at the beginning. All right, so that snare and the blast beats way too loud. So I'm gonna bring that down. Yeah. Throw a little automation point in there, bring that down. That's a lot better. I'm honestly gonna do that for, I'm just gonna sum all these room tracks as well. That way I can just automate them all down at once because they're also too loud during that blast beat. Bam. Add automation volume. Bam. Drop them down some as well. That's a lot better. Okay. I'm just gonna try something wacky here. I'm just gonna use DF clip. All right, a little EQ here. All right, yeah, so now I'm going to do some bus automation to give the whole thing some movement. Edit automation, edit automation, edit automation, edit automation. When I say some bus automation to give the whole thing some movement, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make automation points on all my buses throughout this whole little piece here, and just give the whole thing some movement, some dynamics, because otherwise it would all just be like blasting like your face off at the same volume, which that can, your ears can over time like be kind of like taken aback by that, especially if it's like a, you know, a 5 or 6 minute song. That's why it may be kind of something that you subconsciously notice, but like a good mix has movement and motion through automation. Bam. All right. So the very first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put points here at point, you know, here and here on every track. And then I'm gonna grab all these guys. I'm going to move them down just a bit. Didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna grab this guy, move it here. I'm gonna drop another point in right here. Bam, bam, bam. Then I'll have to drop points in first. Bam, bam, bam. Pull them up here. So this is actually gonna get a little bump in volume. Might be cool to add a little bump here. Just it doesn't, it doesn't have to be super long, super exaggerated. It can just be like a little, it can be as simple as just a little like nudge in volume that lasts like, like a 16th or an 8th note in duration, just to kind of just be like, yo, what's up? It's a new section. And I could, if I wanted, pull the whole section up just a little bit. So there's my little bump. There's the whole section up. What I will do here is I'm going to add a little dip in these drums, since everything else kind of drops out and it's just the drums by itself for this measure. Bam, bam, bam. Add points here. All right, so the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the points where I have right there. And I'm going to actually drag that down to match where this section was at in volume. I'll leave my bump there. Bam, bam. Yeah, that's what I want. Move my volume bump over. So now that little transition will flow like so. All right, right here, I think a tape stop might be cool. So I'm going to automate in a tape stop. If you don't know what a tape stop is, let this be like a fun little treat for you. First thing I need to do is I need to move that before my limiter. I'm just going to add an automation parameter for my master. That way I can then add parameters. Then I got to go to console, scroll over to main, find my inserts, find my tape stop, and then I need to add in the stop parameter. So I can automate in a tape stop here. And then I believe everything blasts back in here. So I'll want the play parameter. And I'm going to set the start time here to nothing. And then I'm just going to loop this section and I'll calibrate the stop time so that it's exactly right at that 2 measures. Here we go. It can take a little bit of experimentation to see what the right duration for the tape stop is. Which it may even be better to have that right here. I think that might have been it. Let's see. That'll work. I'll take it. So, all right. Nerf that, and then I kind of want to add me a little like something funky here, like a big gnarly bass drop here. I like big gnarly bass drops. Who doesn't? And the way I'll attack this 808 is I'll just throw on this FG Red compressor from Slate. Pretty fast attack, pretty quick release, and I'll set it at about a 4-to-1 ratio. And I'll work the threshold so it's getting about 5 to 7 decibels of gain reduction there at first. And I'll bump that up about somewhere between 5 and 7. Then I'm going to add in an EQ. And I'm just going to high pass this guy here at like about 25 hertz ish. I'm not really going to do any boosting here because this is a pretty gnarly wave as is. All right, y'all, there we have it. Speed mixed in an hour. I'm gonna let the whole thing play out, and that will conclude this video.